funny that in a time when we are told that we have to review American history and we have to rethink American history, there's a simultaneous attempt to remove all the iconography of the past in order so that we never have to discuss it ever again. Yeah, I really don't think that the future is going to have a very tough time figuring out why America fell. First of all, I just want to say Shana Tova Umtuka to all of my listeners. That means have a happy and sweet New Year, because the last couple of days I was off thanks to the Jewish New Year, which is a time for reflection. It's a time for thought. It's a time for making new resolutions. It's a time for renewal, in fact. And the good news is that we did that in my community. We spent some time thinking about all of those things. And then the bad news was I came back and I read the news and I realized that the United States is in apparently an irreversible state of decline. That seems to be all the news that is fit to print. And the great indicator of this was the situation that has now arisen over the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue in Virginia. Now, here's the thing. I totally understand why people would want the Robert E. Lee statue removed in Richmond, Virginia. I do. I get it. I understand if you're a Black American and you look at a statue of Robert E. Lee, who presided over the Army of the Confederacy, which was an army that was in favor of the remaining, the continuation of slavery. You look at that statue and you say, why exactly are people paying homage to this man? Why exactly would we do that? Isn't that a vestige of American racism? I get it. I do. I also understand the people who are descended from Southerners who fought in the Civil War, who look at Lee and what they see was a man who presided over the Civil War, yes, but also presided over Reconstruction to the extent that he didn't continue the guerrilla war, right? This was a major issue at the time, is whether Robert E. Lee was actually going to continue to foment the Civil War after his surrender at Appomattox. And he pledged that he would not do so, and he would use all of his efforts to bring the country back together. There was a feeling in the South that he was sort of the romantic figure of gentlemanliness. Some of that image has been obviously tarnished by historians who have now come forth with new details about his life. But Lee was a very human figure in a lot of variegated forms. And what that means is that people view him in different ways. So I totally understand the argument to remove Robert E. Lee's statue. I get it. I think that there are people who make the argument that Robert E. Lee's statue should come down for the same reason that a George Washington or Abraham Lincoln statue should come down. That's idiotic. And that is a different argument. And herein lies the problem. And the problem is not the pure removal of the Robert E. Lee statue, although my view of this generally is with Condoleezza Rice's view of this, which is that statues generally ought to remain up because they remind us of a past when people were, in fact, held in high esteem despite having really, really bad views and fighting for really bad things. And so that provides you a jumping off point for discussion of these issues. What was going on in America in 1858? Right? Why did people think in 1890 it was worthwhile to build this statue of Robert E. Lee, this gigantic 21-foot statue of Robert E. Lee? Right? All of those things are good for the discussion of the American body politic and American history. It's kind of funny that in a time when we are told that we have to review American history and we have to rethink American history, there's a simultaneous attempt to remove all the iconography of the past in order so that we never have to discuss it ever again. Right? That's kind of bizarre. So my view is that the statue should remain and we should discuss the statue in all of its complexity and all of its nuance. Okay, however, that's really not my issue here. My issue is what we replace things with, what we replace American history with, what we replace that discussion with, and what we have decided to replace the discussion of American history with, what we have decided to replace our own history with, is a perverse, simplified wokeness that does spell the end of America in pretty much all of its forms. Not the getting rid of the Robert E. Lee statue per se, but what we are replacing it with. And what I mean here is that there was a time capsule that was buried under the Robert E. Lee statue in the base of the statue. We are now replacing it. Okay, this is the part that's kind of astonishing. And also, the imagery that was associated with the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue. Right? If you're going to remove the iconography of the past, it should be done in a sort of, I would say, solemn fashion. It should be done very seriously. Instead, the Robert E. Lee statue was removed to the wild celebration of a crowd below, as though they were toppling a statue of Saddam Hussein or something. Robert E. Lee does not preside over the country, nor did he ever preside over the country per se, right? He was the general of the Confederacy was defeated between 1861 and 1865. And you saw one of the people who was taking this thing down, who'd been tasked with taking this down, putting up the Black Lives Matter fist as this was taken down. Now, you can say that maybe the statue should be taken down, but replacing it with the ideology of Black Lives Matter, which is that America is invariably racist, not only conflicts with the actual imagery, which is a black man taking down a statue of a Confederate general, which does not bespeak the white supremacy of the United States in 2021, but also Black Lives Matter is pushed and based on a lie. The lie that Black Americans are immutably stricken by the American systems of power. That it's the same sort of rationale as critical race theory, Black Lives Matter. And if you're a black person in America, you live with the boot of America on your throat all day long. That obviously is not true. I mean, we're literally taking down statues right now, right, that offend people. But that sort of imagery is telling. What's even more telling is, again, the time capsule. So the time capsule to me is the story, not even the removal of the statue. The statue is a story, but a much bigger story and a more indicative story is this time capsule removal, because they removed the time capsule, right, which is generally you put vestiges of what you think are the most important objects of the day and you bury them. And then in 100 years, the cool thing about a time capsule is you open it up and you have all the artifacts from 120 years ago, 130 years ago, and you can see what was important to people at the time. What we replaced the objects in the time capsule with, underneath the Robert E. Lee statue, says everything about this. Future archaeologists are going to have zero problems whatsoever understanding the decline and fall of the United States. They're going to look at this time capsule and they're going to go, oh, well, that was not a toughie. That was not difficult. It's not going to be Edward Gibbon writing a millennium later, trying to figure out exactly why Rome declined and fell and trying to suss out all of the various rationales. Here is the actual story behind the story. So they got rid of the Robert E. Lee statue, and then they took away the artifacts that were inside this time capsule that had been placed in the pedestal of the monument on October 27th, 1887. They said that the objects in the old capsule were believed to have ties to the Confederacy. Ralph Northam, the governor, who also apparently had ties to the Confederacy, considering he was either wearing blackface or a KKK outfit in his medical yearbook, he says this monument and its time capsule reflected Virginia in 1890. And it's time to remove both so our public spaces better reflect who we are as a people in 2021. Now, here we go. What exactly was in the new time capsule? Right? What did they decide that they were going to place inside the new time capsule? This is supposed to, remember, signify what America is all about. What is in the artifact list now? Okay, so here's what they put in there. They put in there a Black Lives Matter sticker, right, which is, again, signification of a movement that suggests that America is irredeemably racist. They took down a Robert E. Lee statue because America is irredeemably racist. So you've got these stickers saying America is irredeemably racist. They have writing a new history kente cloth worn by the commissioners of the congressionally chartered 400 Years of African American History Commission and Ghanaian emissaries that participated in the 400th commemoration of 1619. Right, so we have a kente cloth in commemoration of the 1619 project, which, again, is a designation that America is rooted in evil and can never be extricated from that evil, and all of its institutions are shot through with that evil. We have a Virginia is for Lovers pride pin and sticker, which is great. So we have a pride pin signifying our love and celebration of alternative sexual proclivities and behaviors. Not of the family. Note you, not like a signification of the family, but like the pride pin. We have also the Virginia Ratify ERA, Equal Rights Amendment sash, and the Equal Rights Amendment 2020 pins. So that's very important, right? So we have an Equal Rights Amendment sash and pins for a constitutional amendment that is not actually adopted and that suggests that there are no differences between men and women in law. We have a First Lady face mask submitted by First Lady Pamela Northam. So it's her own face mask that goes in the time capsule. It's important future generations know that we were insane and that we face masked presumably until the end of the American Republic. We have photos and flyers from Stop Asian Hate protests in May 2021 in the Virginia time capsule. Now, so far, have you heard anything that celebrates America? Like a single thing in this time capsule that says that America is good or that our fundamental institutions are good? Nope. Zero things. None. The only thing that really has to do with the institutions of Virginia, per se, is a photo of the Virginia State Police at 14th Street and F Street Northwest in Washington, helping Washington Metro Police Department patrol the city for unrest after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Right, so we have a commemoration of January 6th, which is really important so people understand that the real threat to the United States was a bunch of droogs who ran into the Capitol building. We have an expired vial of the COVID-19 Pfizer vaccine and the CDC vaccination record card. So if you think that America has always been rooted in a creed, that America has a civic religion, and typically that civic religion is embodied by the Declaration of Independence, say the American flag, apple pie, motherhood, all of that. We've now replaced this with the pride flag pin, a kente cloth for 1619, the pseudo-pagan worship of scientific materialism via a COVID-19 vaccine vial and a face mask for the First Lady. Yeah, I really don't think that the future is going to have a very tough time figuring out exactly why America fell. I feel like this one's going to be real easy for us. And here's the thing. As America collapses within and America collapses without, the story is that we are basically just going to eat ourselves to death. We're now the plot of Wall-E. Right? The best hope for the United States, according to the Democrats and according to Joe Biden, is that as we rip ourselves apart, as we lose all centralizing principle, as we collapse on the foreign front, as we do all of those things, at the very least, what we can do is park our asses in a recliner and just eat a bunch of fatty foods until we die. That's it. And the government will pay for all of that. Unless you're unvaccinated, in which case die on your own. But otherwise, the government will pay for all of these things. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.